I discovered the terrifying truth: the Vatican's exorcisms are a cover for murders. I never should have opened that door. My heart raced as I stood before it, the peeling paint and cracked wood whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. In my normal life, I was just a student, shuffling through lectures, hiding behind textbooks. But that evening, I stumbled into a world far darker than I could ever imagine. The air was thick, almost suffocating. I felt it wrap around me, cold and clammy, as I gripped the doorknob. The darkness loomed heavy, smothering any light that dared to enter. My skin crawled with unease. Shadows flickered in the corners of my vision, twisting like tendrils of smoke. I could hear its faintest, softest whispers, calling my name, taunting me. Curiosity pushed me forward. I wasn't alone. Strange noises crept in, a rustle, a thud, barely perceptible yet bone-chilling. My pulse quickened, the adrenaline surged. I knew I should turn back, but there was something enticing in the air, something that smelled of incense mixed with decay. Suddenly, a painting on the wall shifted, or at least it felt that way. I blinked, and the figure in the artwork seemed to shift, its painted eyes following me, staring right into my soul. I could almost hear a voice, low and gravelly, murmuring about secrets lost to time. My throat tightened, a lump forming as fear gnawed at my insides. Then, without warning, a loud bang echoed through the room, slamming the door I stood before. My breath hitched. I turned slowly, dread pulling in my stomach. I wasn't alone anymore. A silhouette emerged from the gloom, tall and looming, blocking the feeble light. "You shouldn't have come here," it hissed, voice a chilling whisper, sending shivers down my spine. I felt frozen, stuck between terror and disbelief. The room pulsed with an energy I couldn't comprehend. The shadows danced wildly, eager to consume me. My heart thundered, drowning out any rational thought. I stepped back, instinctively searching for an escape, but the door was closed, barred by the chilling reality before me. With a scream caught in my throat, the figure lunged forward, and just like that, everything went black. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The weight of darkness enveloped me as I faded into the void. But the quiet was short-lived, replaced by a cacophony of torture screams and heavy chains clanking as if I had been thrust into a hidden chamber of despair. My eyes opened to find myself propped against the cold, damp stone wall of that accursed room. Gone was the figure, yet the air remained so thick with malice that I could almost see it swirling around me, a dark mist pregnant with maledictions. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing, my instincts driving me to flee. The faint candlelight flickered uncertainly, casting grotesque shadows that seemed alive, slithering, calling at my feet, beckoning me deeper into a realm where the essence of fear was the only constant. I leaned against the wall for support, trying to catch my breath, but the air felt almost electric, tingling against my skin and suffocating my thoughts. It was a living touch by humans and echoed by the cries of the Forsaken. As I stumbled through the shadows, I noticed walls lined with tapestries, each weaving tales of sins that felt ungraspable, creating a grim mirror of holy and unholy mixed in a breathtaking horror. Flashes of distorted figures in prayer juxtaposed with monstrous visages reached out from the fabric, their faces contorted in agony, silent witnesses to atrocities hidden in the doctrine of faith. I turned away, unable to comprehend what I was seeing, my mind reeling. The further I ventured, the more I felt the temperature drop. I was not alone. A sensation crept up my spine, an icy caress whispering secrets only the damned should hear. The whispers began to morph into voices of those lost, wailing, demanding salvation that would never come. Find us, they implored. Help us, my stomach churned. I wanted to turn back, but a force beyond comprehension pulled me deeper into the shrine of horror. I reached the end of the corridor, where a grand archway opened into an expansive chamber. The ceiling towered far above me, draped in shadows, while the walls were adorned with grotesque idols, their features unrecognizable, twisted mockeries of holiness. At the center stood an altar, a dark slab, stained dark crimson, as if it had absorbed centuries of bloodshed. Flickering candles circled it like penitents, their flames quaking with trepidation, casting an unsteady light upon dark rituals fetched from the recesses of madness, the scent of burnt incense mixed with something far more sinister, iron, decay, and a lingering trace of something sweet, almost inviting. As I stepped closer, my foot landed on something sleek, and I froze, heart racing anew. Looking down, I was met with a pool of drying blood, the crusted remnants forming grotesque shapes beneath my shoe. Suddenly, I heard a low growl reverberate through the stone deep and primal, like an ancient beast awakening from slumber. My breath caught in my throat, and I instinctively backed away, but the growl shifted into a throaty laughter, echoing with malice. From the shadows emerged a figure, veiled in tattered robes, face obscured. With a sweeping motion, it raised its hand, revealing a small, glimmering object, an ornate dagger with a hilt encrusted in obsidian. You seek the truth, it whispered, words dripping with venom. But truth is forged with blood. The chamber seemed to pause in anticipation, the shadows encroaching, as if they hungered for my very essence. Then, the figure raised the dagger higher, and in a voice like cracking stone, it uttered, "You will join the others." A blinding pain shot through my chest as the ground shuddered beneath my feet. No! I shrieked, trying to wrench myself away, but tendrils of darkness lashed out, gripping me like a vice. Clutching the altar, I felt a surge of power course through me, and the shadows began to twist in agony, shrieking intensely. But just as I thought I might prevail, my own shadow, animated by the presence, lunged toward me, melding into my own form, awakening an unholy rage within me. I screamed in horror, realizing I had become the vessel of darkness itself. As I lost grip on my sanity, I felt the dagger's icy edge pierce my flesh, not the altar's blood, but mine seeping into the stone. Everything began to whirl, spiraling faster and faster until the world exploded into a kaleidoscope of madness, sinking me into oblivion. Before everything faded into chaos, I heard their voices reiterating softly, "You shouldn't have come here." And beneath it all, an even darker truth lurked, gnawing at the edges of my consciousness, a truth that whispered of an eternity I was yet to comprehend. Then, everything fell silent, save for the laughter that echoed deep within the shadows, hauntingly familiar. It bore my name. A distant sound pulled me from the depths of my nightmares, the sweet agony of realization clawing at my mind. I opened my eyes to find myself sprawled on a cold stone floor, the acrid smell of decay filling the air. I was alone, so I thought. The darkness around me throbbed with life, each shadow pulsating, breathing, as if an unseen entity was locked in a dance of malice, anticipating my next move. I pushed myself up, trying to ignore the agony in my chest, the sharp reminder of the dagger's bite. My heart raced as fragments of the past moments crashed over me like waves of a fury-filled sea. I could still feel the laughter in my bones, a familiar echo that resonated with the very essence of my being. Was this horror a reflection of my soul? I staggered to my feet, trying to steady myself against the cold, unforgiving walls, their surfaces sleek with something unidentifiable. The chamber loomed around me, an unnatural tomb for secrets best left buried. I crept away from the altar, pausing only to catch my breath as a trapdoor swung open, revealing a staircase spiraling down into even deeper darkness. The air was suffused with an unnatural chilling whisper of the unknown. "Oh, you seek the truth." A voice sliced through the silence, guttural and dripping with honeyed malevolence. It wrapped around me, pulling me closer to the yawning abyss, a primal urge urging me to descend into madness. My instinct screamed at me to turn back, but the curiosity gnawed at me with relentless hunger. What was truth if not born from anguish? With trembling legs, I took a step down. The stairs crunched underfoot, littered with bones, remnants of lost souls who had sought answers only to find despair. Each step echoed ominously, amplifying the intensity of dread crawling through my veins. As I ventured further down, the voice returned, a caustic melody weaving through the dark, inviting me deeper. Join us. Join your brethren. I began to question if this was the clever law of madness, or something truly sinister. With each step, I felt the oppressive weight in the air grow heavier, the atmosphere thickening with maleficence. My breath came in shallow gasps as the pulse of 1,000 heartbeats echoed around me, the very walls seeming to breathe with anticipation. Shapes began to flicker in the periphery of my vision, glimpses of those like marionettes, bound to the strings of the darkness, forced to dance for an audience of shadows. Suddenly, the staircase opened into a cavernous hollow chamber veiled in shadow, illuminated by flickering torchlight. Glimmering eyes peered from the darkness, surveying me with a mixture of hunger and familiarity. They whispered forgotten names, swirling memories that teased the edges of comprehension. A familiar figure emerged from the press of shadows, bathed in eerie light, a phantom of what once was, a remnant of a life I could scarcely remember. Help us, it sobbed, its voice breaking like glass. We've been waiting for you. The face shifted, contorted in a macabre mix of longing and torment. I took a step back, but the cloaked figure reached out, fingers elongating like gnarled branches. You belong with us now, you are part of the darkness. Before I could react, a blinding flash surged through the hall. A surge of chaotic energy sent my heart racing, resonating through the very marrow of my bones as shadows clawed at me, wrapping tightly around my limbs. The teeth of dread sank deeper, and I gasped, riding against the bindings of despair tightening their grip. Accept it, the voice prowled through the air, sultry and sharp. Embrace the truth. As I struggled against the oppression, a pair of hands shot from the shadows, grasping my shoulders, pulling me toward a monstrous visage emerging from the darker creature unlike any born of this world, its smile a grotesque display of teeth. We need your blood, it hissed, its breath rancid with decay. The binding must be complete. You can be the key. In that horrifying moment, I understood this was not just about my fate, but an offering to something far more ancient than I could fathom. A dark covenant was forming, a sacrifice poised to awaken something far more sinister than any exorcism could conceal. With a frantic surge, I threw myself backward, scrambling against the throbbing shadows. The creature lunged forward, and with a guttural growl, the figures closed in, a flood of faces twisted in agony. No! I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the darkness, my hope fading as I felt their desperate clutches unleash a pulse deep inside me. As their cries rose in a fever pitch and the walls seemed to close in, I realized I no longer controlled my own fate. In an instant, the space shifted, and I found myself amidst the altar again, surrounded by the offerings of blood now vibrant and alive. But then I saw it reflected in the altar where my shadow lay, not as a mere echo, but a twisted double, a mockery of my existence, grinning back, hungry for my soul. And in that reflection, I understood, as a shiver raced down my spine, I was not the only one who saw the truth. The dagger, the entity I had merely become a conduit for a truth far more horrifying than I could imagine. And then, the world tilted. I felt the floor crumble beneath me as I plunged into the void, the laughter in my ears erupting into a cacophony, resonating with the answer I would have given anything not to hear. Then came the voice again, soft yet resounding in its dreadful clarity, you cannot escape what you are. Blackness closed in, and in that darkness, I heard them call my name over and over. I fell through the darkness, weightless as despair wrapped around me like a shroud. The echoes of my name reverberated with a sickening familiarity, each utterance more distorted than the last. The sensation was suffocating, pulling me further into the unknown, where shadows morphed into beings of unfathomable malice. I could feel them reaching for me like 1,000 icy hands making their claim, gripping tighter as I plummeted into nothingness. Suddenly, I landed hard on a soft surface, the impact knocking the breath from my lungs. My eyes flew open, and I gasped in the dense, humid air. Around me, a sinister landscape unfurled, a cavernous arena where walls pulsed with a bioluminescent glow, illuminating the grotesque forms that wove through the shadows. They were neither living nor dead, suspended in agony and ecstasy, creatures of both nightmares and nightmares but anew. Lifting my head, I realized I was on the altar once more, but a darker haze surrounded it. An unnatural heaviness permeated the air, igniting every nerve in my body with an urgent warning. Glimpses of ritualistic symbols right before me, carved into the stone with a viscous substance that seemed to breathe, glistening as if expecting a feast. A chilling silence engulfed the space, drawn taut with anticipation. Then, without warning, an eruption of sound shattered it. A shrieking chorus of voices blended in torment, swelling like a tempest. The cacophony of lost souls clawed at my resolve, filling the void with their desperation. "Free us! Free us!" they cried, and I clutched my hands over my ears, but their voices pierced through the walls of my mind, merging with my own sense of horror. I staggered to my feet, heart pounding, and began to scan the writhing darkness for an escape. It was there, just beyond the reach of the pulsing shadows, but then, a figure emerged, crawling towards me with an unnerving grace, its face obscured by a veil of darkness. When it neared, I felt an electric pulse in the air, an aura that filled me with a mix of dread and peculiar comfort. The mouth opened, revealing an impossibly wide grin, its teeth sharp and glinting like polished ivory. "Why do you resist?" it whispered, the words slithering through the air. "You have been chosen. You are the answer to their prayers." Panic surged within me. Rightness of its words gnawed at the edges of my sanity. I could feel the weight of the answers pressing against my chest, like a vice tightening around my lungs. "What prayers? I don't want this." My voice cracked, desperation spilling over the edges of my determination. It tilted its head subtly, as if amused. "You think your will is strength? You play the game you're pawn amidst kings and shadows. They offer you fortune, enlightenment. All you must do is yield," it urged, coaxing me deeper into the abyss. A flood of images invaded my mind, flashes of rites conducted under false pretext, the masquerade of purity that cloaked the dark, sinister truth beneath the Vatican. I saw the butchered remnants of those who dared question, suffocated under the weight of supposed holiness. Their blood was the ink of their final edicts, spilled upon the stones for the unholy scripture written in fear. No. I screamed, backing away, the realization seeping like venom into my veins. But the shadows danced closer, swirling like a miasma drawn toward my every flicker of defiance. "Will you fight against destiny?" the figure laughed, a sound that twisted my insides. "Or will you submit and reclaim all that was taken from you?" Rage ignited within me. I was no one's sacrifice. With primal instinct, I launched myself forward, breaching the churning mass of shadows as they cried out in anger and surprise. My body surged with adrenaline, forcing me to push beyond. A sudden light flickered at the end of what felt like a corridor, a ray cutting through the encroaching darkness. As I neared the illumination, an icy breath brushed across my skin, a warning, followed by the now familiar, inviting voice breaking through the chaos. "Come back, we are waiting for you." My heart clutched with terror. The shadows twisted violently, fingers like iron claws clawing at my flesh. But I was so close, just a few more steps. Then, just as I thought I had reached the light, it flickered violently, and the ground beneath my feet erupted into a swirl of darkness, pulling me backward with insatiable force. I couldn't breathe, desperation sank its teeth into my flesh. As I flailed, I could hear their cries again, "Rejoin us," growing fainter as I felt myself torn from the precipice of salvation, dragged deeper into a void filled with whispered promises of knowledge and fate. In that moment, shadows coalesced into a figure. With cunning savagery, the creature snatched my wrist, pinning me against the pulsating altar. "You cannot flee. You are one of us now." The shadows merged into my being, a rush of their collective anguish washed over me, filling my being with echoes of wrath and sorrow. And just as it felt like I would drown in that despair, I saw something, a glimmer of silver. The dagger that marked me, its blade woven with a pulsating dark energy, thrumming as if echoing the heartbeat of the eldritch beings surrounding me. Then, as my eyes widened in horror, I heard the final whisper wrap around me like a lover's embrace, soft but commanding. "You have only just begun to uncover the truth. Everything shattered: the light, the shadows, the very fabric of my consciousness succumbed to a terrifying singularity. I had delved too deep, and now it was time for the horror to wake. The world twisted cruelly as I was drawn through a swirling vortex of nightmares, where my mind grappled with a fractured reality. Like porcelain underfoot, the remnants of my sanity lay splintered around me, and every heartbeat roared like an impending storm. I plummeted into a subconscious maze of horrors, where echoes of forgotten prayers wrapped around my throat, strangling rationality until my thoughts became unrecognizable. I landed again, this time on a cold stone floor slick with sweat and remnants of something darker. Shadows loomed like squirming phantoms, their whispers crawling beneath my skin, igniting a fever of persuasion. "Stay with us," they beckoned, voices threaded through with despair and longing. It felt as though countless eyes bored through the shroud of darkness surrounding me, judging my fears and inviting me to join their dreadful congregation. The air crackled with malevolence, vibrant and alive, and I was suddenly engulfed in vivid imagery that crashed over me like tidal waves, a surreal mosaic of their cult, of anguished faces contorted in ecstasy, rituals drenched in crimson under flickering flames bathed in black ash. I caught glimpses of red-cloaked figures reciting prayers that dripped with lies, each syllable punctuated by the hollow echoes of obedience and deceit. Heart racing, I stumbled forward, trying to navigate through the labyrinth, but stumbled upon an obelisk standing defiantly in the center of the room. It shimmered with the same bioluminescent pulse as the walls, etched with symbols I had never seen yet felt unconsciously familiar. Each carved line throbbed with a dreadful intent, reverberating through the cavern as if waiting for something somewhere to awaken it. Suddenly, the air grew thick, and the ground beneath me trembled as insistent whispers raised into a crescendo, filling my ears with madness. "Offer yourself," they urged. "Join us in eternal dominion." Panic clawed at my chest as the shadows writhed with increasing fervor, the promise of belonging pressing against the boundaries of my mind like a vice. My hands curled into fists, fighting the urge to surrender to their insatiable calling. I won't join you," I yelled, my voice trembling as I stumbled backward, my heart racing with terror. The obelisk paused in response, and the lights flickered ominously, spiraling into a kaleidoscope of fear as a suffocating pressure encircled my head. In a split second, I saw a Visaion, a cavalcade of figures, faceless in their hoods, gliding through the ether of despair. They reached out, fingers elongated and sinister, beckoning with an invitation steeped in malice. "You belong to the void now," they hissed. "You need to feel it, every terror, every ecstasy." The sight filled me with an acute understanding. This was no simple gathering of shadows, this was a communion of ancient evils, and I was the offering. Shaking, I turned, seeking an escape, when I felt the chilling touch of something unnaturally cold wrap around my ankle. I glanced down to see shadowy tendrils constricting with malice, dragging me down, their sleek surfaces glistening with an essence that sent a jolt of horror through my veins. "Help us," the whispers begged, their chorus now a desperate cry. "Free us from their grasp." Adrenaline surged as I twisted and jerked, tearing myself free, and finally found my legs beneath me. I dashed towards the massive arched opening across the chamber, where a faint light flickered as if taunting me with the promise of escape. I burrowed through the shadows without daring to look back, their screams hot on my heels. As I reached the threshold, a blinding light engulfed me, and I staggered through the portal, landing hard on a cracked tile floor. The cacophony died away, replaced by an unsettling stillness. I blinked, adjusting to the fervor of this new reality around me. A grand hall stood drenched in decadence, ornate and foreboding, casting sinister reflections. Then, I noticed them, the figures in red cloaks encircling the altar, faces concealed, chanting in unison under the gaze of a tapestry depicting unspeakable horrors. Muffled cries emanated from behind a pair of heavy iron doors, concealed under layers of glimmering sigils. "Timor Rex," they chanted in a rhythm that reverberated through my bones. "Seduxit ad mortem," their words coiled in my ears like a snake, releasing venom as the very air throbbed with their dark glee. I knew their intentions, their hunger for dreadful endings, and I understood that whatever lay behind those doors was the culmination of their malice. Summoning every ounce of courage, I approached, drawn to the door like a moth to the flame. Each step felt like a death knell, each breath heavy with fate. I pressed my hand against the cold surface, and in that moment, the whisper surged back, urging me forward, drumming against my thoughts with fervor. "Join us!" They begged frantically, and I hesitated. The weight of a horrific legacy hung upon my shoulders. The air crackled pulse-quickening as I pushed against the doors, a low groan emitting from the ancient wood. And then I felt something. A heartbeat, deep and resonant, thrumming beneath my palm. Frozen, I glanced over my shoulder, and my blood ran cold. The cloaks had turned towards me, eyes glowing dark and hungry in the depths of their hoods. "We thought you would yield," the voice intoned, echoing with finality. "Now, you must choose." Before I could draw breath, the door creaked open, revealing a sight so unspeakably horrific that all thought fled my mind. I teetered on the precipice caught between the door of a nightmare unveiled and the hollow promises of an abyss pulling me back. In a fleeting moment, the truth slid into focus, untouched by the shadows, and just as realization dawned, a figure lunged from the depths behind the threshold. "You cannot escape!" It shrieked, and I felt the tug of destiny sharpen like a knife to my heart. Then the world exploded into chaos as the shadows surged forward, causing my vision to fracture in a blinding rush of terror, not knowing whether I would wake up or perish in that very moment. Falling through the chaos fractured my vision into distorted shards, and it felt as if the very essence of my soul splintered apart, suspended in the grip of malevolence. The shriek from the figure behind the door clawed at my mind, resonating with a deep-seated dread that transcended understanding, a primal urge to flee mingling with an insatiable curiosity about what lay beyond that horrific threshold. As the darkness surged forward, I barely felt the grip of gravity resume its hold on me. My body twisted instinctively, propelled not by my own will but by a force unseen, caught in a ghastly interplay between escape and temptation. The cloaked figures chanted louder, their words harmonizing in a pitch that resonated through every fiber of my being. "Timor Rex! Timor Rex!" My heart thundered as I broke free from inertia, scrambling backward, now more aware of the intricate designs adorning the hobbled red vines entwined around angels that wept tears of agony. The chilling sensation of an unseen presence wrapped its icy fingers around my throat, whispering deadly promises of enlightenment and power if I simply submitted to the inevitable despair that trailed so dangerously close. Desperation took root, and I darted to the left, seeking refuge behind a host of ornate pillars, each embellished with grotesque monstrosities woven into the stone. As I pressed my back against the cool surface, gasping for breath, I could still hear the thrumming heartbeat resonating from the doors. It thudded in an ominous rhythm, each pulse seemed to mock my sanity, beckoning with the promise of illumination beyond terror. Peering around the pillar, I caught sight of the altar illuminated by sickly candlelight. The very air appeared dense with smoke and desire, swirling like nightmarish specters. Upon the altar lay a bound figure, too far to make out details, plunged into shadows but unmistakably human. Their struggles against the bindings were feeble, each movement draining energy like a flickering candle about to extinguish. No. I gasped, daring to step forward, the horror igniting a primal force within me. "Let them go," the cloaked figures pivoted as one, their hoods concealing any semblance of humanity. "It is too late for them," a voice echoed, a slithering, serpentine sound that left a trail of bile in my throat. "But you. Or you may prove useful." Yet, unsure of what twisted path I had stumbled upon, I turned, rushing towards the figure on the altar, fingers stretching to free them from their bindings. Gantries of dread coiled around my throat, tightening like a noose, and I could almost feel the shadows calling around the air, thickening just behind me. Glancing over my shoulder, the red cloaks encroached slowly, forming a chilling perimeter that painted the hall in patterns of terror. "You cannot save them." One screamed, a warning or a taunt was indistinguishable as the shadows began to materialize behind me, reaching with claws and shadows formed of plagued memories. I felt that intoxicating pulse quaking through the stone, a summons beneath my feet that throbbed like a heartbeat, echoing the choices I never wanted to make. But as the shadows stretched, a desperate strength ignited in me. I charged towards the altar, the claustrophobia of despair pressing against my lungs. Each step bore the weight of choice, and I roared, "No! Wrenching the bindings free with a force born of collective terror, the figure writhed in pain and relief as I tore away the last binding, only to find myself staring into the hollow eyes of a spectral familiar, shimmering like a ghost trapped within a nightmarish glow. The face shifted, molding into the visage of someone lost to me long ago. "My sister, Amelia. Help me," she cried, her voice a blend of agony and despair that burrowed straight through to my soul. 1,000 memories surged forth, splintering my resolve. The shadows erupted, shrieking, "You cannot help her. She belongs to us." "No!" I screamed, my vision narrowing. With a desperate effort, I lunged forward, arms stretching out for Amelia, but as I made contact, her form flickered like a wavering flame on the brink of extinguishment. "Save yourself," she implored, eyes wide, glistening with a profound fear that paralyzed me. A flickering candle threatened to drown in the tide of encroaching darkness surrounding us both, but I was caught between salvation and despair, choice and the acceptance of an unseen fate. The shrieks grew into a cacophony, drowning out her voice, a sinuous chant that clawed at my sanity. My feet trembled as the ground beneath me rippled with malice, snapping like tendrils of fire consumed by a torrential storm, and just as I reached for Amelia one more time, a piercing scream erupted behind me as the door slammed shut, trapping me with the inexorable shadows. The figures merged and twisted, and the chant materialized into a single, terrible phrase, "Join us forever." My fingers grasped at the air as a blinding light splintered from the door, and I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound emerged. I felt the world collapsing beneath me, the very fabric of reality tearing apart as I struggled against the horror's embrace, and then, the darkness surrounding us lunged, and I could only watch as Amelia vanished into the void, leaving me alone with the eyes of the void staring hungrily into my soul. The pulse quickened once again, but this time, it was not a welcome heartbeat. It was a countdown to oblivion. The air thickened, pressing against me like an iron shroud as the shadows writhed with cruel anticipation. I stumbled back, bumping against the altar as the lingering essence of Amelia's sorrow hung heavy, a ghostly chain binding my heart. Her pleas echoed in my mind, drowning me in guilt mingled with a tormenting sense of urgency. "Forever," the cloaked figures hissed, their voices intertwining like serpents wrapping tightly around my sanity. Each step they took drew me deeper into a haze of suffocating dread. I blinked desperately, combating the oncoming waves of despair, looking for an escape that slipped further away with every second. As I steadied my breath, I dared to lash out, clutching the nearest object on the altar, a chalice, its surface streaked with tarnished gold. I shrieked with fury, brandishing it like a weapon, and moved toward the encroaching shadows. The flickering walls distorted, painting horrific images on the surface's souls writhing in agony, their mouths frozen in silent screams. "Leave me be. Release her," I shouted, my voice cracking as the walls leaned in, seemingly absorbing my words, growing thicker with each denial. The shadows recoiled momentarily, their momentum faltering, igniting a spark of hope, but before I could take another breath, the shadows regrouped, swirling back with renewed fervor. The figures surged forward, their red cloaks pulling at their feet, forming a grotesque carpet of crimson. "You dare defy us?" one rasped, the sound echoing like a death knell, sending tremors through the very ground. Amelia's face loomed in my mind, the light in her eyes twisting into despair. I felt her fading presence, and the anguish shattered me anew. I had to break free, I had to find a way to break this cycle of damnation. With every ounce of defiance surging through me, I held the chalice against the nearest figure, shattering the moment it collided with the unseen barrier. The silver contents spilled like blood upon the stone, hissing with malice as wisps of smoke rose like lost spirits. The cloaked figures stumbled back, momentarily pushed away from their unholy ritual. Fueled by a blend of fear and resolve, I turned to the altar, searching blindly for any relic of power or sign to help break this unspeakable hold. My fingers grazed the edges of grimoires bound in cracked leather, their pages filled with cryptic symbols and dark incantations. Flipping through a few, one paragraph gripped my attention. "To sever the bond, one must understand their root." Understanding. The words felt like a jagged stone in my stomach, a challenge I was unprepared to accept. Yet time dissolved around me, and as I rifled through the pages, every turn seemed to resurrect memories of Amelia, each punctured by flashes of our shared happiness, moments now marred with the heavy cloud of an inescapable fate. Find the heart of the fear, the book urged silently, and I felt a horrific realization clawing its way into my mind, my deepest fears, my failures, the moments I thought I could erase. The truth rippling beneath my skin was a dark reflection of my soul. What had I allowed to fester? The shadows regathered, their awareness tracking my unease. Fingers of black crept closer, warming through the air, seeking the warmth of my flesh. I held open the book in desperation, desperate to unveil the secrets which felt just out of reach. More pleas slipped from my lips, formed prayers and desperate curses filled with raw emotion. The room paused as the shadows reacted violently, most recoiling as if struck. "We will claim what is ours," they screamed, their haunting symphony collapsing back into one voice so rich with menace that it felt familiar, reverberating in my bones like the tolling of a demonic bell. I knew then, the heart of my fear lay in the empty space where she used to bear me, failure to protect her, to hold onto her against the inevitability that had now wormed its way into my existence. The shadows shifted, revealing a fractured reflection of myself, the embodiment of regret and despair. Its eyes bore into mine, consuming the last flickers of hope like a raging flame. Just as I confronted this dread with a whisper of resolve, the altar began to tremble, and in that moment, a visage split the shadows from above. Willowy hands, pale as bone, reached down through the veil, clawing for my essence. Time slipped away, leaving only that horrific moment behind, stretching infinitely as I felt the world bend around me. I gritted my teeth, refusing to be consumed, and screamed into the very depths of my fears, the truth crashing like thunder in my soul. "I will not join you." But the crescendo of shadow surged forward, an abyss of despair folding in upon me, until a shocking brilliance burst forth beyond the blackened despair. The cloaked figure screamed, retreating as the light erupted from the altar, engulfing the room in a brilliance that momentarily seized the very essence of darkness. In that illuminating moment of stark clarity, I felt profound terror intermingled with an unexpected relief. The shadows howled as they writhed against the light before fading into the distance, taking the broken fragments of Amelia's spirit with them. But amidst the chaos, as I blinked away the blinding luminescence, a greater fear engulfed me. What if the light hadn't come to save me? What if it had come to usher in a far more malevolent darkness? A low, chilling whisper slithered through the air. "You think you have escaped, but the truth, it is only just beginning." And with that, the ground beneath me trembled violently as the altar split open, revealing a gaping maw of blackness that poured into its depths, beckoning with insatiable hunger. The scream caught in my throat as the darkness beckoned me with promises of power, of knowledge, and offer I dared not refuse, even as it threatened to swallow me whole. The ground quaked beneath my feet, rattling my bones as I stood on the precipice of the abyss that had opened up before me. The stench of sulfur wafted upward, mingling with the memory of Amelia's scent, a cruel reminder of what I had lost. Panic set in as I felt tendrils of darkness lick at my ankles, as if testing their grip on my very essence. The glowing light had faded, and in its absence, the air thickened with foulness. "Come to me," the whisper called like smoke, tantalizing yet menacing, its core echoing in the hollow recesses of my mind. I could feel the cold chant of the shadows pause around me, hungry and desperate. They sought something from within me, an offering to satiate the untamed thirst they bore. As I fought against the pull of the void, I turned my back on the gaping maw, nearly stumbling. But the cloaked figures were no longer retreating. Instead, they began to rise from the ground, their bodies untethering and materializing from the shadows around me, faces twisted with rage, mouths agape as they shrieked curses that rattled the very stones of the altar. "You cannot choose the light without making a sacrifice." Their cries mingled with the sound of thunder, reverberating deep within my core. A sharp pain pierced my heart as they advanced, and I stumbled backward, collapsing against the altar. Desperation clawed at me, mingling with fury. "No! You will not take me!" I screamed, my voice swallowed whole by the cacophony of sinister laughter. In my mind, the weight of my failure searched for the deluge of memories wherein I had failed to protect Amelia, each one like a strike across my spirit. Then came the realization with horrific clarity: their presence here was a twisted reflection of my own guilt. I was the gravity that held this nightmare together. My stories, my fears had woven them into existence, brought them forth from the depths of my own anguish. They thrived at the seams of my soul. Recalling the grimoire, I reached for it once more. The book lay within grasp but felt heavier than the world collapsing around me. Pages fluttered like wings, drawing me to ancient incantations hidden in the margins. To sever the bond, I murmured, I must understand the heart of my fear. A primal instinct struck, and I closed my eyes, plunging into the hidden recesses of my mind. Images flashed, Amelia's laughter transformed into screams, her smile dulled in grief, a specter of my guilt haunting my every step. I had known even before that fateful night that danger loomed, yet I had turned my back, greedily consuming my desires while ignoring the dark threads of fate interwoven around us. I was blind. I screamed, as the cries of guilt melded with an unearthly roar. The shadows lunged toward me, hands clawing for my heart, but I retaliated with the strength of my despair. I will not be a puppet to your despair, I proclaimed, channeling my emotions into the words of the incantation. Each syllable ignited a flicker of resistance that illuminated the suffocating darkness. A piercing wind erupted from the altar, tearing at the shadows, dispersing them momentarily. But with every ounce of light that surged forth, a deeper darkness emerged, rising from the barren depths below where the altar had cracked, writhing like a serpent unleashed. The shadows howled in fury as if the abyss had awoken, and then, from the swirling blackness, something emerged, a shape converging with glimmers of light and obscured in shadows. It escalated from the depths, a grotesque figure with swollen limbs and a gaping maw lined with rows of teeth that glistened with malice, draped in rags that appeared to be whole skins of the fallen. Who? It shrieked, and I was rooted by a blend of terror and recognition. I had seen this creature in my nightmares, the embodiment of dread I had unknowingly summoned with my thoughts and fears, a monster forged from a cauldron of regret. Oh, you think you can sever what is so intricately bound? It hissed, the echo wrapping around my consciousness, tightening like a vice. You are the heart of this darkness, and I shall claim you as my own. Bolstered by fury and desperation, I surged forward, my palms pressed against the altar, my voice rising against the encroaching horror. I will not let you win. The words erupted from me, a battle cry against the tide of despair threatening to engulf me. But just as the creature recoiled, the cloaked figures surged back with renewed vigor, their voices colliding to form a singular terrifying tone. It is too late. You are already ours. As I faltered on the edge of that dreadful chasm, the elation of resisting mere moments from despair, I felt the shadows wrapping around my legs, tightening as the abyss opened wider. I looked down, horror-stricken, to see thin strings of darkness binding me to the altar, deeper than mere physical hold, tying into the very essence of my fear. A blinding flash erupted from the heart of the altar once more, illuminating the horrors surrounding me, and for a fleeting moment, I glimpsed the faces of those who had once stood by my side, those I had lost and those who had betrayed me. Know your truth. The creature roared, its voice merging with the sounds of my past, sweeping through the veil of my sanity, pushing forth fragments of memories that had long since festered. Embrace it before it consumes you. The darkness surged, visceral and hungry, as I felt my resolve teeter on the brink, and then, as my scream echoed within the vast chamber of despair, I found myself ripped from the altar, tossed into a sea of shadows, darkness intertwining with my memories, drawing me further into their suffocating embrace. Just as I thought I might succumb, fragments of my resolve flashed before me: light, love, Amelia beacon lost in the depths, and yet, I was never meant to let it go. With one last surge, pulled by the essence of my fondest memory, I clawed against the tide, heart pounding furiously. Amelia! I screamed, and in that desperate call, the world fractured once more, but not before I caught a glimpse of something impossibly sinister and encroaching, glowing hand reaching for me out of the darkness, promising an end or a beginning. I was no longer certain which. I awoke gasping, the air sharp and acrid against my throat. It took a moment for the shadows to meld into focus, the relentless blackness swirling around the dim flickering light that illuminated the chamber. I could scarcely determine where I was, but an oppressive weight rested on my chest, drawing the breath from my lungs as memories of my last struggle rushed back. Amelia's name escaping my lips still hung in the air like a lingering perfume, sweet but tinged with rot. The chamber was small, curved walls slick with a viscous fluid reflecting twisted images of my terrified face. I struggled to sit upright, but the shadows seemed to stretch and pull me back, a malignant force compelling me to remember, to relive. The altar, a gnarled slab of stone, was now to my right, etchings of runes pulsating with a deep red glow that resonated with an energy of sinister intent. Panic clawed at my veins, memories overwhelming met whispers of the shadows returned like a haunting chant, urging me to surrender. Do you regret what you are? They sneered, weaving around me like serpents. Do you understand the price of your defiance? With erratic breaths, I clawed at the cool stone beneath me, bracing against the insistent pull of shadows trying to claim me once more. I remembered the creature, the embodiment of my fears. It had whispered promises of power, of closure, if I would yield. But now, alone in this dark recess, my resolve firmed like iron. No longer was I a mere pawn in a twisted game of horror. I would confront whatever lay ahead. Rising to my feet, I staggered toward the altar, feeling the heat radiate from the markings, drawing me closer. As I approached, the surface began to shift, liquefying as if alive, and a vision pierced the stillness, a flicker of lighter memory of Amelia's laughter. Heart racing, I closed my eyes and reached out to grasp that moment. But as my fingers brushed the surface, the laughter morphed into a lament. The shadows thickened, coalescing and curling into forms, faces contorted in anguish and fury. You should not have called her back. They hissed, their voices layered, resonating like echoes from graves disturbed. She is with us now, enough. I bellowed against the cacophony of sorrow, my voice cutting through the dark frenzy. But my words were swallowed by a monstrous roar, and suddenly the chamber quivered violently. A fissure appeared in the altar, stark and glimmering, revealing a chasm teeming with flickering light souls. I felt something seize my arm, a cold grip tightening like iron. Spinning around, I was met by the gaze of the creature, far closer than before, its eye glimmering with a dreadful knowledge. You are destined to join them, it rasped, breath chilling as it entangled me, like roots of a tree grasping for the last light. Your guilt feeds this place. You do not belong above, not anymore. Desperation surged within, and in an instinctual act of defiance, I lunged toward the altar, using the last fragments of my strength to slam my palm against the surface. The runes flared, casting shadows back in agony, forcing the cursed tendrils from my body. But as I pressed deeper into the altar, something shattered inside me. A wave of unbearable pain erupted, overwhelming my senses as visions of Amelia overwhelmed me once again. Stop. I can't lose you. I screamed, feeling the threads of time unravel, memory swelling with regret and despair. I heard Amelia's voice hidden within the shadows, calling for help, and the world morphed around my images of the past bleeding into the present, the memories demanding attention, demanding justice for the horrors I could no longer ignore. The altar throbbed as the shadows recoiled, writhing in pain as though I had touched something pure. Then, without warning, a sudden chill washed over me, raw and feral. The voices began to coalesce, a haunting chorus ringing out, "You opened the door, and now you shall pay for the keys you have forged." A blinding illumination erupted from the fissure, enveloping the chamber in a stark luminescence. The threads of despair spun tighter, yanking me toward the abyss. As I fought the pull, the ground quaked, and the creature lurched forward, arms extending impossibly long, wrapping around shadows, summoning forth tortured forms, those I knew and those I had wronged. Join us. It screeched, its voice splitting the air like thunder, and then the once distant echoes sharpened into a cacophony of screams. Join us or be consumed. In that terror-filled moment, I realized the specters that surrounded me were more than mere shadows. They were echoes of my past sins, rising to claim me, reclaiming what I had denied for too long. And as the light intensified, shadows swirled, threatening to engulf me, I couldn't help but wonder if the darkness was the only truth I had left to embrace. Suddenly, the altar heaved once more, and with a sound like splintering wood, the fissure widened. What emerged from it sent shards of terror skittering down my spinier face. Amelia's face, twisted in righteous anger, reaching for me from the darkness with a blood-curdling wail. "Why did you leave me? Why did you forget?" My heart plummeted into the void as I plunged toward the fissure, a scream frozen on my lips, aware that I stood on the precipice of my worst nightmare. It was then that I knew, either I would succumb to the shadows, or they would claim my soul forever. But what awaited on the other side of that chasm, beckoning like a siren's call, was the last shred of humanity I had fought to save me on. The darkness pulsed with malevolence as I hung suspended between two worlds, the weight of my own choices pressing down mercilessly on my chest. The fissure loomed larger, the agonizing wail of Amelia drowning out every rational thought, and I felt a bone-deep terror grip me. Her eyes glimmered with both longing and fury, a reflection of the anguish I hadn't confronted. "You did this!" she shrieked through the swelling darkness, her voice resonating through the very marrow of my soul. "You abandoned me to this horror. I tried to save you." I shouted back, but the shadows twisted, swallowing my words. They laughed with chilling glee, 1,000 tones blending into one as they delighted in my suffering. "You're too late to save anyone, and now it's your turn to pay." The ground shook beneath my feet, and I had to fight to remain upright, my own anguish threatening to unravel me. Each moment felt eternal as the very fabric of reality warped, taunting me with visions of every moment I had failed. Faces twisted in despair appeared around me, their darkness hungry for the fear I projected. For the first time, I saw them not just as shadows, but as lost memories, a mosaic of every regret I had buried. "No!" I roared, shoving my palms against my throbbing temples, trying to dull the relentless ache of reality crashing against my conscience. "I can't be responsible for this. It was never intended," but they merely ride closer, and with a grotesque semblance of empathy, they whispered, "It was always part of you, your fear of loss, your guilt. They are your shadows." The laughter twisted into an derisive howl, and I felt the room collapsing around me, contorting like the monstrous creature of my nightmares. I could not yield to them. I refused to let them dictate my reality. I am more than my fears. I resisted, rage fueling me as I grasped the edges of the altar, ignoring the searing pain that shot through my fingertips. The runes etched into its surface glowed brighter, almost in response to my tumultuous heart. "You wish to sever the bond?" The creatures coiled tighter, urging me with ghastly anticipation. "Then offer a sacrifice. A sacrifice." The word crashed over me like a tidal wave of dread. The entity laughed, its form shimmering just beyond comprehension, a maddening reminder of what I had summoned to myself. "You are aware of what that entails, aren't you?" In that moment of clarity amidst the chaos, realization pierced through the haze. "No," I gasped, recognizing that I was not just a puppet. "I will not give you what you want, not my fear, not my regret. I'll reclaim it all." Summoning every ounce of strength, I focused on the memories I had buried, ones I thought I could escape forever. Amelia's laughter, her light, the recollections spilled from sepulchres filled with promise and warmth. "I refuse to give in to your darkness," I declared, forcing the remnants of my defiance into the echo, and as I spoke, the shadows paused, fascinated by my resistance. In that instant of doubt, I felt the chains binding me to the altar dissolve. The darkness writhed angrily, but it was as if my refusal had sparked a fissure in their predestined claim on me. Yet the ground swelled beneath my feet, and I glimpsed the foul figure emerge again, furious and unyielding. "You think you can resist? You belong here, you belong with us." "No," I cried, my voice rising. "I would not yield my spirit to them. I would not succumb to their monstrous desires." My heart thudded in my chest, and I focused once more on Amelia, not as a spectre lost to the shadows, but as the sister I had fought to keep close. "You are not lost. And neither am I." I reached forward, finding that light within the fissure, shimmering with heavenly purity. The darkness erupted, howling in rage, the figure swirling and imploding around me as I grasped the remnants of Amelia's essence. Her spirit flickered back into focus, her form unshackling from their bonds. "You can save me," she whispered, desperation mingled with hope. And just like that, the shadows recoiled gently as if struggling against an invisible tether. With a primal roar, the pulse from the altar coursed through me, igniting my entire being, wrapping around us like a cocoa barrier against the very forces that sought to claim her. Still, the darkness clawed at me, frantic now, shrieking louder. "You are a fool. You can't sever what has already been wrought." In response, I no longer felt afraid, I felt a blinding intensity of purpose. "I will not become what I fear," I screamed, and the light engulfed the chamber. The shadows exploded with fury as if my refusal had shattered them, sending tendrils recoiling into nothingness, leaving a void of silence in their wake. I felt Amelia's spirit slip free from the tether of despair, wrapping around me with warmth. In that moment, something profound unfurled within. The shadows shrieked, but their cries faded into the distance, and I felt the chains holding my heart tight dissolve completely, releasing the burdens of guilt and despair like a storm passing. As I stood amid the crumbling altar now radiating light, I realized this truth: I was my own catalyst of change. The shadows had only thrived on my fear and grief. Their final cries echoed away, disintegration remaking the chamber into a sanctuary of burgeoning light. But as I turned, something deep within the recesses whispered, nagging me with a horrifying dread, "Would the shadows return? He'll protect you this time," I whispered, not just to Amelia's spectre, but to the essence of hope rekindled between us. But as the light began to fade into unexpected serenity, a chilling breeze whispered through the hall, carrying a familiar, echoing laughter that seemed so close yet so far away. "You may have escaped us, but shadows linger in every heart. Beware, for we shall return." Even in triumph, the weight of my own fears echoed in the realization that not all darkness could be extinguished, it might hide and wait for the moment to rise again. Amelia's smiled, a haunting reminder of what we fought for, yet as the light dimmed, the final whisper lingered in my ears, a promise of inevitability: "When the shadows return, remember, they will always know your name."